Welcome! You have just tuned in to Awakening the Gift with psychic medium Montana Greene, igniting a stream of consciousness within you. Are you ready to feel more comfortable talking about and trusting your own intuition? You can learn to embrace your own natural and subtle abilities. The possibilities are limitless. Hi, I'm psychic medium Montana Greene, and together we will look at all of life, yourself, and your fellow living beings through an expanded spiritual lens by examining spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics. Stay tuned for insights into the human energy field, spiritual principles, and tools on how to care for and utilize these for the highest and greatest good of humanity. Awakening to our spiritual gifts has never been more on time. Awakening to the Gift starts now. Hello, everyone. I'm psychic medium Montana Greene. Thank you so much for joining us today on Awakening the Gift on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us ignite a stream of consciousness in you. Every second and fourth Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we'll have insightful conversations about spirituality, higher consciousness, and all things metaphysical, helping to ignite a stream of consciousness in you. Today, we are diving into the topic of tarot cards, oracle cards, and everyday items and symbols that help to speak your own intuitive language. Anything in your environment can help to be a divination tool to communicate messages and guidance to you. So, welcome to Awakening the Gift. All righty, today, again, talking about all the really fascinating things. Oh, give me one little second here. Here we go. So, how many times have you wanted to have some answers to something? How many times have you wanted a little bit more insight into what's coming up for you, what to expect from a particular topic or situation? Well, you are absolutely not alone, because everybody throughout the history of humanity has done exactly the same thing. People have always been very curious about what's coming up next. And so divination tools were designed to help people along that path all throughout history. So again, this is every civilization, every culture has had its own form of divination, right on from, the Egyptians. We all know that the Egyptians were very much into symbolism, mysticism. They had a lot of very well-known mystical text and that type of thing. But even the Europeans and the Africans, the Chinese, the Africans are still very active in their culture with mysticism and metaphysics and spirituality, very common there. Also, in the Chinese culture, that's the group that came up with the I Ching and several other symbolic divination tools. The Mayans had their own set. So literally every single culture all throughout the history of time. Now, the interesting thing is that divination tools existed way back in the beginning of time, right? And they still do today. So what exactly is a divination tool? So the practice of divination is the practice of foretelling the future, of looking for the hidden causes to events, the undercurrent influences of things. Essentially, it's looking for answers. So symbols are very much at the heart of divination tools. And of course, we all know in our own daily life, we encounter symbols all the time. We're using symbols in everything. Today, all of our infographics are filled with symbols. Now, those symbols, when you're talking about divination tools, again, they are conveying a bigger concept by use of that symbol. It's interesting when we think about the plethora of symbols all around us and how one person can interpret it one way, whereas other people can see it a different way. And that's kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today, which is how you can help to develop your own intuitive language by setting up and assigning meanings to symbols that you see in your own environment. So you can come up with your own unique library of symbols, so to speak, to help develop your own intuitive language. And humans have been doing this for the longest time. So as I said earlier, all civilizations, every culture has their own divination tools, right? It's been embedded everywhere. And it's interesting that that was used by rulers, by kings, sometimes even the clergy, as well as the common people. So looking at some of the symbols that we see on a daily basis, right? This is kind of a common sense thing when we're talking about symbols here. Imagine yourself in a restaurant and you're looking for the restroom. We're looking at symbols to tell us which restroom is the proper restroom. We're looking at the street signs and the symbols that they convey, right? So even though your intuition leans heavily into communicating with you via symbols, some of interpreting the symbols is just a common sense thing. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can strengthen your own ability to interpret the symbols around you. All right. So it is my deepest desire to kind of normalize the use of intuition and to demystify it. So as I said, interpreting symbols is, yes, partly common sense. It's also partly intuitive. However, intuition is a natural part of human consciousness. We're always using our intuition. And the beautiful thing is when you're trying to establish your own intuitive language, or in other words, strengthen your own intuition, you can do that by setting up symbols that mean something to you. So let's talk a little bit more about the history of divination tools. So as I said, every single culture, every single civilization has had their own divination tools. It's really interesting how some of these divination tools kind of came about. You know, it was necessity is the mother of invention here. Oftentimes, ancient people would use what they had access to. And sometimes what they had access to were kind of some gross things. In the past, some cultures would actually use entrails of animals. So basically they would cut open an animal and interpret the condition of that animal's bowels. So apparently, if it was a healthy looking one, then it would convey something positive. So it really is kind of that basic. Now, fortunately, we have come a very long way and we're not cutting open animals anymore, or at least that's not what the majority of people are doing. Anyways, other objects that they used were just everyday objects to them. The Vikings and that culture was very big on runes, and so they would make those out of little rocks. So rocks were used, sticks were used, bones were used, things that they found in their everyday environment. Similar, like how many times have you been walking along and found a feather on your path? People have always looked at things and said, wow, I wonder if this is a symbol of something greater. I wonder if this means something bigger. So tea leaves were also used. That's another very common thing that was used for divination purposes. So today we're talking a little bit more about how you can develop your own intuitive language, but we're also going to get into some of these very popular divination tools such as tarot and oracle cards and things of those nature. But what I really want to communicate to everyone is that you can you can really use anything in your environment. Sometimes we're interpreting the signals of traffic. So I have a funny little story for you from years ago. It was around my birthday, and my plan was to get more of a piece of tattoo continued. So they were going to add on to an existing tattoo that I had. And now my intuition was kind of telling me all along, don't force this one. Maybe it's not the right timing. But me being headstrong, my conscious mind was like, no, I'm doing this for my birthday. I'm bent on it. I'm going to do it. So as I was driving to the tattoo studio, I got behind literally the worst traffic. And not once, not twice, but 3 times. And the last time was when these 2 semis clogged up both of those lanes. And I kept hearing that little voice in my head that I was forcing this and that this was a sign from the universe to maybe reschedule or to think it through a little bit more. So my point being with this is that we are very often receiving messages and signals from our environment around us. Now, those 2 semis and the traffic is not quite the same as a tarot deck, right? But it did communicate something to me. To kind of fast forward things for you just a little bit, was I happy with the tattoo piece that I got that day? No, I was not. I definitely should have heeded all of the signs in my environment that were telling me to slow down, that were literally blocking me. Now, I'm certain that all of you have had some kind of instances that have been similar to that. Again, intuition, everybody has it. The universe is always speaking to every single one of us through multiple different forms. Sometimes it's as easy as traffic. Sometimes it's easy as finding a feather as you're walking along. Sometimes it's easy as coming across to a YouTube video that just seems to really speak to you. So these are very common things, but I do want you to give a little thought to when was the last time that you felt the universe was sending you a message through whatever was in your environment. Okay, so as I mentioned, back in ancient times, people used some kind of different means to foretell the future, to find out more of what was going on. Sometimes they would be doing these to find out how a battle was going to go, what the status or condition of their people was going to be after a certain event. I want you to be also thinking about how you can be using your intuition just a little bit more in your own daily life to help you make better decisions. And again, intuition really is kind of that pairing of one part common sense, one part intuition. So of course, intuition is that feeling state, but remember that the feeling state is also being triggered by things that we see in our environment. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about some of the more modern forms of divination tools. So fortunately, we have moved along from the animal entrails, which personally I think is super disgusting. And that must have been terribly gross and very dirty. And what a labor, right, to do that. Nowadays, we've got things that are much cleaner, much easier, but even the most popular modern day divination tools are actually quite old. So let's talk about tarot cards specifically here. So again, you can either pronounce those tarot or tarot. So I kind of interchange here. And fortunately, I've never been struck by a lightning bolt because I didn't say it the proper way according to somebody else. So whatever way rolls off of your tongue is totally fine. But tarot cards actually date back to 1450. So again, talking about how ancient people would use what they had available to them for a divination tool, back in the day, tarot cards were actually a playing game. So the same as we have a 52 card deck now, that's what the tarot was back then. So they would just play a game with it. At some point, somebody decided, hey, I wonder if I can foretell the future or use this as a divination tool. And oh my gosh, it worked really well. Now, at that point, they also added on to it. They, I believe it was it the court cards that they added into it? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, they fleshed it out and added more to it so that they could refine its ability to be used as a divination tool. Okay, so tarot, again, the first time that we saw that enter the scene was around 1450 in Europe. It was actually in Italy that it became very, very popular. The interesting thing about that is that tarot, again, was just a playing cards. It was just a pastime kind of thing. Anyways, what I want you guys to know about tarot cards or tarot cards, as wonderful as they are, as great as they are, they have no innate power. So what do I mean by that? So tarot cards themselves, there is no spirit attached to them. There's no magical energy infused into them. They truly are paper that just has symbols printed on them. And again, I'm not trying to throw any shade or upset anybody by saying this, but just being very honest, a lot of the tarot cards and oracle decks these days are mass produced. Many of them are mass produced in China. Many of them are mass produced by, quite literally, the US Games Company. Okay. So they're just paper that has beautiful imagery, that has symbols embedded in them, because again, your intuition is speaking to you oftentimes through symbols and feelings that you associate with those symbols. Also, your own personal experiences. Okay, so when you're using tarot cards, you are not opening up any portals, okay? I know that sometimes there's Hollywood movies that want to really sensationalize things. As I said, these are just paper with beautiful images, with really great symbols on them, and that speak a different language. But again, you're not actually opening any portals by using tarot cards. Anybody can purchase tarot cards. You can get them off of Amazon. You can get them on Etsy. They're widely available. So I had one person say, oh no, I touched, what did she say? She touched a Mexican witch's tarot cards. And so she thought that she was going to be cursed for doing that. So again, that's not actually going to happen. If you touch somebody else's cards, you're not going to get cursed. Bad things are not going to happen to you. It is kind of an interesting topic to talk just a little bit about tarot cards that have been used, okay? So let's say, for example, you order a deck off of Etsy or off of Amazon and it's fresh to you, okay? There's nothing special about that deck. You might love it and it's great and you should treat it with respect and value it, but there's really nothing special about that deck at that point. Now, in time, you can infuse that deck with your own energy and your own intention. And I do absolutely highly recommend doing that if you purchase a deck for yourself. And we'll also talk a little bit about that later on, about, is it okay to purchase a deck for yourself or does it have to be gifted to you? Okay, I have been doing this for so many years. I don't want to date myself here, but many years here, nearly 3 decades. I'm telling you right now, you're perfectly safe to purchase your own tarot decks. So get the ones that you resonate with. I've had people gift me card decks, which I always appreciate, but I like the ones that I buy for myself because I know what my preferences are. Again, because tarot is speaking through symbology, you want to get a deck that looks the way that you like, something that is more relatable to you. I had a friend who gave me a very beautiful tarot deck that was very like whimsical and water paint like, and it was very pretty and just not my cup of tea. So totally okay for you to buy your own tarot decks for yourself. Okay, like I said, you can infuse them with your own energy. So what do I mean by that? So when somebody is using a deck over and over again, you're infusing energy into it, okay? You're putting some of your own energetic signature on that card deck. Before you ever get going with any divination tool, whether it is tarot, whether it's oracle, whether it's a pendulum, anything else, you do want to dedicate it to the higher power, okay? So you want to clearly state that this tarot deck or this divination tool is exclusively dedicated for the highest and greatest good of all. You want the most relevant, meaningful, accurate, and detailed information from highest source power to be communicated through that tarot deck. Why do I say that? Because if you think that spirits and ghosts are all relegated to just haunted houses and graveyards, they certainly are not. Not to mention other human people bring in their own low vibe energy, and you don't really want that getting on there. So again, you want to dedicate it to the highest power, to the highest energetic frequency and vibration of love and truth and relevancy. Okay, Once you've gotten past that, let's talk just a little bit about what that one client had said to me the time about, I touched a Mexican witch's tarot deck and I think that I'm cursed now. Really highly, highly, highly unlikely. But I do want to let you know that when somebody has used a deck for so long, there is a special energy that comes off of that. You can feel the fact that it has been in service to many, many people. The owner of the deck infuses it with their own energies. Hopefully the owner is a good-hearted person. You know, all humans are humans, right? Some people are sweet and some people are a little more edgy or dark. I would always recommend, if you are looking for a reading, and this is common sense, you don't really need me to tell you this, but if you're looking for a reading or you want any kind of spiritual counseling or whatnot, go for somebody that genuinely feels good to you, that you resonate with. When I say feels good, hopefully that's somebody that you can say, yeah, this person clearly has good intentions for humanity or for the world. Not to get off topic too much here, but I will also say, and this very much is kind of off topic, but I've known many people. I personally do not offer the service of doing spell work. I don't do any of that stuff because I don't want to be associated with many of the people that do, because I have seen so many that are really just swindlers. So if somebody is telling you that if you pay them $800, they'll get you that man of your dreams or they'll solve all your problems, yada, yada. Here's my number one kind of cheat card for that. Look at their own lives. Is that person successful? Is that person healthy? Is that person doing well in life? Because if they themselves are not doing well in life, how are they going to help you manifest what you want? And again, that's just kind of common sense. Okay, back to the topic at hand here, which is tarot cards. So as I said, you're not opening any portals. And you're also not conjuring up any spirits with tarot cards, especially if it's one that you just bought for yourself and you have not infused that energy in it, okay? It is good to buy your decks brand new, quite obviously. Okay, so we are getting ready to take a break here. And when we come back from that break, we'll be talking a little bit more about, do you actually need to be psychic to read tarot cards? Okay. So you're listening to Awakening the Gift with me, Psychic Medium Montana Greene, and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will explore more about the topic of tarot cards, oracle cards, and divination tools, and how everyday symbols can be speaking your own intuitive language. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Awakening the Gift with me, Psychic Medium Montana Greene. And today we're taking a deep look into tarot cards, oracle cards, and everyday symbols and items that can be used to speak your intuitive language. But before we continue, I want to make sure that you all know how to connect with me. So if you'd like to reach out to me, you can do so at my website at whisperingleafpsychic.com. All righty. Do you need to be psychic to read tarot cards? Okay, well, the answer is no, you don't. Again, tarot cards are amazing. But as we've been discussing, what tarot cards really are is beautiful imagery with symbols on them. So basically, there are many, many readers that I personally know that are very upfront and honest and tell their clients, listen, I am not psychic. I'm only a tarot card reader. And so it is important that you know you don't have to be psychic to read your own tarot cards or to read tarot cards in general. So let's talk a little bit more about those tarot cards, though. So yeah, you don't need to be psychic to read them. The interesting thing with tarot cards here is that they incorporate many, many symbols, okay? So there's a lot of principles that go into tarot cards. Some of them is astrology. So if you know anything about astrology, it ties in with the tarot. If you know anything about numerology, it ties in with the tarot. So the tarot is embedded with both of those, as well as the Kabbalah, or Kabbalah, however you like to pronounce that. And I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it properly for everybody's preferences out there. But as I said, astrology, numerology, and the Kabbalah is very much embedded into the symbology and meanings of those tarot cards. Now, the interesting thing with tarot cards, as I said before, it started out way back in 1450 Europe, Italy, as just a pastime, as a card game. So also, the regular 52 card deck that we have today, like if you go to Vegas or you have a poker night at your house or whatever else, the regular 52 card deck also can be used as a divination tool. I have met people that do their readings through regular 52 card decks. So how is that possible? Well, let's talk about that. So the tarot cards and the regular 52 card decks are actually kind of similar in the respect that they have the 4 suits, okay? So with tarot follows a structure, and that structure has suits. So there's always going to be the suit of wands. There's always going to be the suit of swords, pentacles, and cups. Now, various different decks will kind of play around with that a little bit, and they'll, I think sometimes I've heard the swords being called knaves and, whatever. So they can put their own little spin on them thing. Anyways, the 52 card deck, same thing, right? You've got spades, you've got the clubs, you've got diamonds, and they all kind of correlate, right? So anyways, just a fun little fact, they actually started out as playing cards, and regular playing cards can also be used as a divination tool. All righty. So again, as I said, tarot is kind of its own special little thing. The tarot follows a structured system. Anybody can learn that structured system. You do not need to be psychic. You don't even need to call yourself very intuitive because, again, they come with guidebooks. So you can kind of read through the definitions of things. Now, honestly, does your intuition make it better when you're giving yourself your own tarot card reading? Absolutely, it does. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So, of course, there's the guidebook that comes with your tarot deck. But what I want you to do, or get in the practice of doing, is if you choose to do a card reading for yourself, read the definition. But more than that, ask yourself, how does it feel to you? What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you see that? Because sometimes what is spelled out in the book isn't really relatable to what you're going through. Your own life experiences, your own feelings and impressions are every bit as valuable as the definition in that book. But yes, tarot is simply a system that anybody can learn. So let's talk a little bit more about that system. So tarot cards and oracle cards are actually quite different from each other. Yes, they're similar, but they are in fact quite different. So the tarot cards, again, they've got the 4 suits, right? So the wands, swords, pentacles, and cups. In addition to that, there's always going to be the 22 major arcana. Okay, so the major arcana, those are the cards that are talking about bigger events in your life. Those are the ones that are somewhat out of your control. Like this is the predestined things. They affect the bigger collective a little bit more. In addition to the 22 major arcana, the tarot also has the 40 minor arcana. Some people call those the pip cards, which I kind of think is kind of cute, but those pip cards are very similar to the 52 card playing decks, right? Because that's where you're finding the suits. That's where you're finding the swords and the pentacles and the cups and wands and that kind of thing. And so let me see if I can remember. Clubs. So if you're using a 52 card deck, I think clubs are, oh my gosh, diamonds is definitely wands. Oh shoot, sorry guys, I can't pull that up because I don't actually do a lot of readings with the 52 card decks. But anyways, that 40 minor arcana of the tarot cards is, again, you've got 10, so 1 through 10, or 1 through 9 rather, of each one of those suits. So that's where the numerology really starts to come in a very basic form. So you can learn a little bit about numerology and you'll be able to read those minor arcana cards a little bit easier there. Okay, also tarot, which oracle cards do not have, tarot has the court cards. So the court cards are literally the king, the queen, the knight, and the page. So those are the people. And when you do a card reading for yourself, they do actually represent people. So as you get a little bit more into learning the structure of the tarot, you'll notice, like, say, for example, the King of Pentacles. Pentacles is earth. Pentacles is stable, solid. It's invested in money. It's good with managing the 3D tangible world. So that's kind of, in my mind, I liken that to the people that are just very down to earth, right? We all know some people that are more down to earth than others. We also know people that are a little bit more fiery, a little more enthusiastic, excitable. Those are the people that would be represented by the suit of wands. It's fire, right? So the tarot card or tarot decks, it's really, really helpful. And it's a great system for giving really fantastic readings because, again, it can actually represent people, okay? The major arcana, again, these are big life event kind of things that are out of your control. Those little pip cards are just the small little mundane, everyday little interactions. Okay, so you've probably seen a million different types of tarot decks. If you're into tarot decks, obviously you've seen lots and lots of options out there. So the tarot decks, the artist can put their own spin on it. They can make it as whimsical and watercolory as they would like, or they can make it very realistic as they would like. But if it is a tarot deck, it's still going to follow that basic structure. It's still going to have those major arcana, the minor arcana, the court cards, okay? It's always going to follow that structure. I love tarot cards. I think they're fantastic. You know, I started reading those or learning them very, very early in life. And I think they're great. And yet I will say, from my own personal practice, I don't use tarot cards very much anymore because, for me personally, I recognized this was many, many years back, I was doing a reading and I kept hearing that voice of, like, the cards are slowing you down, as in I was channeling information from the client's guides, right? And yet my conscious mind, so very much left brain right here, was trying to decipher the symbols, okay? So it literally took me out of the right brain, where your intuition is at, and started shifting me more into the left brain, which is analytical. Okay, so yes, tarot cards are awesome, but as you continue to develop your own intuition, many people will outgrow them, or they will lean on them less because their own ability, whether it's clairaudience, which is where you hear it, which is one of my strongest gifts, clairaudience where you hear it, clairsentient where you feel it, and many people are clairsentient and they don't realize it. So when people are saying, oh, I just got a bad feeling, that's clairsentient there. Okay, claircognition where you just know. Really think back to your own life. How many times in your own life have you just known that either something was good for you or not good for you, or you just had that impression and you do not know how you got that, right? It just popped into your head. You just knew. And I always like to kind of say this, it's that I know, like I know, like I know. Even though I may not have the logical, rational information, that feeling is so utterly strong. And again, this is a natural function of human consciousness. So many, many, many people experience claircognition, that clear knowing, very, very commonly, okay? Clairsentient, that gut feeling. Many people feel this all the time. The beautiful thing about where we're at now, and not to get too far off the topic of tarot, but science is able to, again, start to explain a little bit more of our intuition here. So oftentimes we feel things in our gut. Well, our gut is our second brain. The cells that are in your brain also exist in your gut. We live in such an exciting time. I know that many people like to joke around that, oh, this is a terrible time to be alive. I don't want to be on Earth now. I say no, totally the opposite. We have so much power right now, so much knowledge to be able to take better control of ourselves and our lives, right? It's great to be in the information age, just so long as you keep your feet on the ground too. Go touch grass every now and then. Don't live your whole life on the internet. Anyways, let's get back to the tarot cards here. So they always follow that system, and yet the artist, the creator, can put their own little artistic spin on them. Okay, so before you use any tarot cards, you should cleanse your deck, okay? Even if you just bought it brand new off of Amazon or Etsy or whatever. So what's the process for cleansing your deck, right? So you can either run it through smudge, so sage, so burn sage. And again, I want to say this, sage plants have grown all over this planet, not every place in the planet, but all over the planet, okay? So human beings are able to use sage. Okay, you can either smudge it. Okay, now I have Kickapoo in my background, which is Native American. So of course I have a little bit of preference for that. But let's say you can't set off your smoke detectors. What's another nice way to cleanse your tarot cards? Okay, so one way is to set it in a windowsill so that the moonlight comes on it and it cleanses it out. Another way, which I use often, is sound. I am a huge proponent of sound because literally, think about a sonic hair toothbrush, okay? So when you're brushing your teeth with your sonic hair toothbrush, what's really happening here? It's the sound waves that are moving off the plaque, right? It's disrupting it, breaking it up, and cleaning it in the process. Sound waves do the same thing, okay? So cymbals, chimes, I have little like finger cymbals that I will just clang over the deck just to cleanse it. Classical music is also a wonderful and oftentimes underutilized cleansing method. The reason why classical music is so beneficial, though, is because it's not like today's music. Classical music is at a 432 hertz and it's measured. Okay, so classical music is far more balanced, and so it doesn't have the same distortions that our modern day music has. And we could get into that whole topic about the hertz, which maybe we will in next week's episode. I'm going to have an interview with a very, very talented and incredibly wise individual. So tune in next week for our interview with Paul Hubbard, who does sound healing. But anyways, with cleaning your tarot deck or even your pendulum or your oracle cards or any kind of divination tool, sound can be super helpful. Bells are really good. I often use bells to cleanse as well. So as you're cleansing your tarot cards, again, you want to hold the intention in your mind that that's what you're doing. You're purifying it, okay? So it really is that simple. Now, when you cleanse it, again, I think it's a beautiful thing to cleanse your deck before and after every reading. If you're reading for yourself, you don't necessarily have to do that often, but I would recommend at least on a monthly basis. Now, why is that? Because we are human beings that have an energy field. All of our emotions have an electrical charge. That is our energy signature. If we are using our cards often, we're actually imprinting our energy signature onto the cards. Well, just like everything else in your house, hopefully like everything else in your house, you want those things to be clean. So have a regular routine of cleansing your divine items, your divination tools. So very simple to do. You can use music, you can use sage, stay away from any of the cleansing sprays, obviously, because they are paper, but sound is a fabulous thing, as well as moonlight. You can also take selenite, which is a beautiful crystal that cleanses everything around it. And that can be laid on top of your deck or within your bag that you keep your cards in or the box that you keep it in. And that's always kind of clearing it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are about ready to take a break. And I'm Montana Greene, and you're listening to Awakening the Gift, igniting a stream of consciousness in you. We are getting ready to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to further discuss tarot cards and also oracle cards and how you can use them in the symbolic language that is all around us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thanks. We're back on Awakening the Gift with me, Psychic Medium Montana Greene. We've been talking about tarot cards, oracle cards, and the everyday symbols and items and how they can become a divination tool, speaking your own intuitive language. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the value of your own personal experiences in deciphering the signs and symbols all around us. So there are many, many options for divination tools. Of course, tarot decks, as we've been speaking about, follow a structure, and they're all going to be similar in that structure, and they incorporate astrology, numerology, and the Kabbalah. Now, what about oracle cards? Okay, oracle cards are a different thing, but similar to tarot in the respect that you don't need to be psychic to read them. Literally anyone can use an oracle deck, and anyone that even doesn't think that they're very intuitive also can read an oracle deck. So why is that? So oracle decks oftentimes are very beautiful, right? So the artist or the creator gets to make them literally any way that they want. So there's no rules with oracle decks, no set rules. There's no structure like there is in the tarot with the major arcana and the minor arcana and the court cards. None of that exists in an oracle deck unless the creator wants to make it that way. So with the oracle deck, they can literally have as many cards or as few cards as they want. It can be a very bright and fluffy theme, or it can be more of a dark one, whatever they want, whatever the artist wants. It's 100% up to them. Now, you also can create your very own oracle deck. Why? Because it's just symbols. So I've got here just a couple of blank little cards. So yes, oracle decks are very beautiful most of the time, but if you decide to make one for yourself and you just want simple, you can do simple. So like, let's say, for example, you're going to make your very own little oracle deck and you're just going to keep it very basic. You want yes, no, good, bad, that type of thing. Say you take your little blank card and you draw a sun on it. Great. So whatever meaning that you apply to that sun, here's my amazing artwork. So again, whatever meaning that you assign to this card is whatever it means, okay? So like, let's say, for example, with the sun, what kind of emotions get stirred up with you when you think about the sun? Remember when we used to do the brainstorming in school and you're just kind of like spitballing ideas? What makes you think about the sun? Optimism, turning on the lights, right? New day. For most people, the sun brings up an association with positive things, okay? So in a very simplistic way, maybe you make your own little oracle deck and the sun means exactly that. Okay, let's say, for example, a baby, okay? Very simple. I'll make a cute little baby here. Not a super extravagant one, but a baby. What does babies mean to you? What comes to mind when you think about babies? Again, here we're just doing associations. This is where common sense comes in, right? So babies, typically new beginnings, something to love, something to take care of, also vulnerability, also can mean fussiness. So my point with all of this is when you are developing your own intuitive language, the symbols that you use can have whatever meaning you want, just the same as an oracle deck does. So oracle decks, so beautiful. I absolutely love them. They definitely serve a purpose. And again, you can make your own, or you can pick from a whole plethora of oracle decks that are out there. So let's talk a little bit about, what if you don't have an oracle deck? What if you don't have a tarot deck? What if you're on the fly needing to have some information? So I've got a very goofy little exercise here, but this exercise will kind of help to impression upon you that you really can use everyday items as a divination tool. So I have got things that we use every single day: spoon, knife, fork, okay? All right, so this is a little exercise in basically using common sense and a little bit of intuition about what that item is trying to communicate. So let's set the stage here. Let's say that you were curious about how your interaction with Billy Bob Joe Curtis is going to go. Okay, Billy Joe Bob Curtis is not a real person, but I had a friend say that one time and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. So I've decided that every time I need an example person, I'm just going to call him Billy Bob Joe Curtis. So let's say you and Billy Bob Joe Curtis need to have some kind of conversation about potentially money that they owe you or some other kind of personal arrangement. Okay. So how could you use a spoon, a fork, and a knife as a divination tool? And again, this is simply an exercise to help you make those associations and decipher things. Okay, I'm not actually telling you to use utensils as a divination tool. I think there's far better things. Anyways, let's say, for example, you were going to ask, how is this interaction, or how should I proceed with this interaction with Billy Bob Joe Curtis? Let's say you close your eyes, you pick one, and you get the fork. Well, think about a fork, right? Maybe it's a three-prong approach that you need to take. Maybe you need to kind of be selective and poke at it just a little bit. Let's say, for example, instead you pulled out the knife. Maybe it's, I won't make that joke. Knives are about cutting things, right? It's very black and white. It's being very decisive. So just kind of getting in the practice of deciphering what you're seeing around you, okay? Let's say, for example, like the angel numbers that many people are seeing very often around. So angel numbers are great. Yes, you can read it in a book. You can go see what the meanings are or look it up online. But I would like to encourage you to ask yourself, what were you just thinking about when you saw those numbers? I'm going to give you a very quick example of something from my own life with those angel numbers. So I was competing in bodybuilding, which if you've ever done it, it's a commitment. Anyways, and it gets very hard because it really overtakes your life. Anyways, I kept seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So of course, my intuition, my common sense told me what that's about is 1, 2, 3, 4. Just keep going. Just keep going. Now, I went online and looked it up, of course, and that was not at all what the definition was, not even close. So again, I just want to impress upon everybody to also use your own life experiences, what things mean to you, to help you decipher what these symbols are saying to you. You know, it's almost like when you see animals out and around, okay? Like you see falcons often. I see falcons very often around my house, which always tells you, keep your little dogs safe, keep them in. Anyways, what's a falcon, right? You don't even have to go look it up. It's a bird of prey. When you see falcons, what do falcons do? They look at things from that big picture. They look at things from very up high, but they're also assertive. They are also very selective after what they go through. So maybe if you're seeing falcons, think about that. What is that animal known for? What is the characteristics of that item or that symbol? And you can use that to help decipher what the language of your intuition is telling you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have had so much fun on this show with you today, and thank you so much for your time and attention. I very much look forward to joining with you again next week. So join us next week here when we bring on sound healer Paul Hubbard. But in closing, I just want to leave you all with that thought that you have the power to create your own intuitive language by assigning your own personal meanings to different symbols. And the process of strengthening your connection to your own inner wisdom is done by doing that. So remember, practice leads to progress. So practice that. And trusting your intuition involves paying attention to your senses and your own personal experiences, not just external sources. It doesn't always have to be found in a book. Sometimes it is found in you. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today on Awakening the Gift with Psychic Medium Montana Greene. Please join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And join me next week or next time as I welcome pioneer in the field of holographic sound healing, Paul Hubbard. Do you know how sound waves affect you? Do you know how sound waves affect your energy body? All right. Well, tune in next time to hear all about Paul's groundbreaking work and learn more about the invisible dance of healing sound waves all around us. Have a great week. Thank you so much for joining me, and be well. You have been listening to Awakening the Gift with psychic medium Montana Greene, igniting a stream of consciousness within you. To find out more of what is needed to shift your consciousness above the ordinary, tune in to Transformation Talk Radio every second and fourth Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Each show we examine spirituality, mysticism, and metaphysics, along with the tools to help us achieve our life's missions. To connect with me, visit whisperingleafpsychic.com.